Once upon a time, in a land crackling with thunder, a great swordsman used to wander the mountains and made a wager with a great Tengu he came across. He gambled his young, strong body as a bet against a bow given by the Raiden Shogun. Alas, he was taken as a servant by the Tengu, but still won the unmatched bow. Many years passed, and he was no longer a servant boy, and had grasped the mastery of both archery and swordsmanship. When disaster came from a distant sea, the great swordsman embarked alongside the Raiden Shogun to fight off this catastrophe and bring peace to their home. Before he left, he made a mutual wager with the Shrine Maiden, betting on his safe return from the abyss. As the Shrine Maiden waited in their usual spot, her belief that he would return began to fade as the great swordsman would not come back. Hey guys, I'm Clementine, and welcome back to my Genshin Impact lore series. In this video, I will tell you what there's to know about the tragic tale between a Shrine Maiden and a great swordsman, who lived in a time where a great catastrophe took place. It is said that they were once friends of the Kitsune Saigu, and that the great swordsman would serve as a hatamoto under the Raiden Shogun. Most of this information was gathered from weapons and artifacts currently found in the game, while some came from a bit of research of Japanese folklore to learn about what they mean and how they were adapted to the game. Now, as we explore a nation surrounded by the ocean waves, let us hope that the stories of the people who lived here have not been washed away. Let's begin. Beginning with the first chapter, A Shrine Maiden's Ascent. In the distant past, when Teyvat had yet to be threatened by the abyss, there was peace across Inazuma. From there, we can hear the stories of numerous people with their mundane tasks and never-ending cycle of their duties. However, in this story, it all begins in a small fishing village as a child embarks on her journey, setting her eyes on the island of Narukami. The mentee of the Kitsune Saigu, Asase Kanade, was a shrine maiden that served at the Grand Narukami Shrine and lived around 500 years ago. Coming from a small fishing village somewhere in Inazuma, she arrived at Narukami Island and learned how to be a young shrine maiden. She had wanted to train in Narukami for the sake of her hometown shrine. As a novice, Kanade had the impulsiveness and curiosity of a child while managing the affairs of the shrine. This was until Lady Saigu met her and offered to become her mentor. She would often express some elegant but incomprehensible words like the poetic person she is. At first, Kanade was initially distrustful of Lady Saigu, but the two eventually became close in time. Lady Saigu also showed her playful side by knocking Kanade's head with her smoking pipe. Her jokes to Kanade were sometimes out of line, but this was not a big issue for her as she was beginning to appreciate Lady Saigu's presence and their friendship. Kanade's close relationship with Lady Saigu was not the only one she had, for she also became acquainted with Takamine, whom she called the Leatherhead Konbumaru, to hide her affection towards him. Takamine, also known as the Mistsplitter, was a hatamoto of the Raiden Shogun. In his youth, he first wandered the mountains and eventually resided at Mount Yogo, living together with the Tengu, a kind of non-human creature in Inazuma. There, he met Teruyo and gambled his own body as a wager to bet against the Thundering Pulse, which is described as a bow given by the Raiden Shogun. Takamine had a gambler's personality even as a child, so when he first met Teruyo, he bet everything he had like a true gambler does. As soon as dawn came, he had 3 wins and 3 losses against her, which counts as a draw, meaning that he must serve Teruyo but would also acquire the Thundering Pulse. During his servitude, Teruyo began teaching him the incredible skill of Tengu archery, mentioned in the Thundering Pulse. Behold, Kambumaru, this is Tengu archery. Now watch and learn. As Takamine witnessed this great skill, he would soon master it by the time he grew up. Yet, while he was now an expert in Tengu archery, he was much more renowned for his skill with the blade. When fighting against enemies, he would soar through the clouds unfeathered, unleashing a dance of death. At the same time, thunderbolts would rain with every bowstring's pulse. Now fully fledged and someone who can protect himself with both mastery of sword and bow, Takamine would venture again to other places in Inazuma. Eventually, he would meet with Asase Kanade and had a mutual attraction from the start. Finding it a shame that his Tengu archery was going to waste because of his constant use with the blade, Takamine taught it to Kanade. They both have a conversation which can be read in the description of the Storm Cage. It starts with Kanade where she says, "Did you come to me because the string is broken again? You're such a headache. Other than your swordsmanship, you're just an idiotic old gambler, aren't you?" Don't you look down on me. I learned my archery from a Tengu, you know. It's pretty famous too. It's just that I'm too good with the sword, you know. That's why no one ever talks about my archery. Actually, now that I think about it, that's such a waste of good archery. How about I teach it to you then? While their story is described to be a sweet romance, the relationship never went anywhere. With Takamine's skill greatly renowned across Inazuma, the Raiden Shogun recognized him and offered him to become her hatamoto or vassal. Takamine accepted and was given the Mistsplitter reforged and acquired the title of Mistsplitter. Due to this responsibility bestowed upon Takamine, his contact with Kanade became affected as they now rarely meet. He also married a high-ranking samurai's daughter as a result of his current position. Despite his attraction to Kanade, it seemed he still chose to marry a samurai's daughter instead. Saddened with this news, Lady Saigo came to Kanade's side as she tried to comfort her with a joke. As stated from the hopeful heart, "Kanade, why the long face? How about this then? I, the Lady Saigo, shall tell your fortune for you. See, it's great fortune. Great fortune. You know what that means? It means you took away all the bad fortune slips. Please, stop mocking me, Lady Saigo. No, it means that the person you're missing will be lucky enough to become a part of your memories forever. That's why you have to be strong and must live on for a long, long time. Even if all the people you cherish are gone, as long as you are still alive, the time you spent with them will never perish." Despite the comforting words from Lady Saigo, Kanade still insisted on meeting Takamine after he married. Sitting together in a harbor somewhere in Inazuma, they would watch the ships sailing back and forth, at the same time sharing their stories. In Kanade's own words, she would listen to Takamine talk about his nightmares and the Tengu that once taught him archery. She described it as words to hide the melancholy of adulthood. With each passing day, they would hang out again in the harbor and recall each memory they had before Takamine became a hatamoto. Unfortunately, with Kanade's hope that they continue on with the situation they currently have, she would not expect what would happen next. Shimenawa's Reminiscence, the second chapter, an unforeseen event. In the distant past, when Seirai Island had yet to be shrouded by storm clouds, memories would rise and fall like breaths. In the end, the elegant vessel that contained thunderstorms and tremors could not be handed over to the one to whom it was promised. In this next chapter, it will revolve the events that happened to Kanade when the Cataclysm struck. It begins when Lady Saigu and Takamine left Inazuma to embark to Conria. Before their departure, Kanade met with both of them, where they made promises and farewells. Takamine, being the gambler he is, left his bow, the Thundering Pulse, with Kanade, betting that he would get it back once he returned. As for Lady Saigu, she gave her smoking pipe to Kanade as a gift. Even with Lady Saigu's faint smile, she could not conceal her sorrow, as Kanade would realize it was a farewell gift. As days passed, the forces of the Abyss were finally settled, as there was peace once more across Tevat. As the Shogun and her forces returned to their nation, Kanade had not seen the ones she said goodbye to. Saddened by this, Kanade became depressed and would often have dreams of Lady Saigu and Takamine. In her words, "Lady Saigu has been gone for a long time now, and I am no longer that young shrine maiden training at Grand Narukami Shrine. Whenever I hold that empty smoking pipe, I can feel that emptiness and dull pain hover over me like a phantom." Time became a slow spinning wheel for Kanade, but she still hoped for their miraculous return. Fast forward 2 years later, when a rebellion against the shogunate was formed in Seirai Island, led by Akudumeki, who was first mentioned in the Golden Apple Archipelago. The cause for this rebellion was unknown, as there are little details about this event. Maybe we would know the reason in future patches when the other islands of Inazuma gets unlocked, but let us base it on the official information we have now. Back to the rebellion formed in Seirai Island, Kanade would head there and assist them. By this time, she is using the bow Hamayumi. Reading from its description: "Get off the ship. Women are a hindrance here." The thief they called Akudumeki turned and left, but upon hearing this, the Shrine Maiden could not help but smile faintly. In her thoughts, if the person who had taught me archery had not gone forth to campaign alongside the Shogun, then our son would be the same age as Zaimon now, and perhaps I would have come to be a Takamine, or he an Asase. Zaimon's tone, and the way he intentionally turns his back on me, is the spitting image of how he once did it, sword in hand. This time, I will not let this person die, even if it means fighting against the Electro Mitsudomo banner. Her thoughts are cut short as a rebel shouts, "Our fishing spears and swords have been sharpened. It is time to set sail. Let's show those shogunate lackeys the strength of Seirai Island." Kanade chose to assist this Akudumeki or Zaimon due to his resemblance to Takamine. Even after Akudumeki rejected her help, Kanade still volunteered to help the rebellion. Using magic she secretly learned from the Tengu, she undid the 1,000-year barrier and released the resentment of a violet gleed, which can be similar to the Thunderbird that was described in the Thundering Fury set on the Shogunate's ships. It is theorized that this action of hers resulted in the catastrophe that caused Seirai Island's current state. No one knows what happened to her after that. It seems that we will know soon enough when we explore the mystery of Seirai Island in the next patch. Shimenawa's Reminiscence, the third chapter, The Return of the Mistsplitter. Having someone worth missing, I can feel that emptiness and dull pain hover over me like a phantom. As for the man who taught me archery in the sacred forest, he will eventually return to me, even if he were to be blinded by splattered blood or turned into a fierce beast by that dark defilement. I shall save him with our bow to keep our promise, whichever veers towards breaking. In this chapter, we will witness the other side of the story, which is told from Takamine's point of view, starting from when he and Kanade made a bet for a safe return from the abyss. He left his bow to his beloved and ventured to fight off the dark army of the abyss, hoping to restore the peace their nation once had. On the battlefield, he would regret his decision to leave his thundering pulse behind. Maybe things would have gone differently had he kept his bow with him. But according to Takamine, this is not what real gamblers should feel, as they don't feel regret and remorse with their past decisions. Using only his sword, the Mistsplitter reforged, he would keep cutting down his foes with all his might. At the same time, keep reminding himself about the promise he made with Kanade. I shall return and claim the bow that I'd wagered. The result is still undecided. I must return to Asase's side. Sadly, the abyss's forces flooded over like mist, as his sword was not as strong as him, and it gradually broke down from countless use. Outnumbered, he was overwhelmed by the abyss, crashing his sword into the ground. In the end, only fragments of his sword were retrieved for reforging, inheriting the name Mistsplitter Reforged. It was implied in the artifact descriptions that Takamine perished, but when we read another point of view from the Thundering Pulse, it seemed he was rather possessed by the abyss. However, even after abyssal corruption took hold of him, he has always been motivated by his promise to win the wager and return to Kanade. Not wasting a second, Takamine returned to Inazuma with little information about his method of transportation. Still, upon reaching the shores of his once nation, he immediately headed to the spot where they promised they would meet once he returned. As he appeared at the meeting place, he saw Kanade again. In the last lines of the Thundering Pulse, the lone returnee who came stumbling back from the abyss finally met the Shrine Maiden again, though by now, she could no longer be called young. Though Takamine was happy to see her again, he was suddenly pierced by an arrow shot from Kanade herself. With such a reunion, it was expected to be a joyous occasion. However, it seemed that the reality was that those once moments of the two have now become memories. Explaining why, it seemed Kanade wanted to give Takamine a mercy shot in order to end his lover's suffering. This was the only way Kanade could think of to save him. From the quote, though by now, she could no longer be called young. It looked like a lot of time passed ever since the Cataclysm happened. Kanade grew old but would still relive her memories with Lady Saigu and Takamine, and would still visit the places where they once talked. No one knows what happened to her after that and what she did for the rest of her life. There is also no known info whether this happened before or after she joined Akudumeki's rebellion. But one thing is certain, she and Takamine are now but stories passed as legends in the land of eternity. Well, I hope you enjoyed my video about the Shimenawa's Reminiscence artifact set. It is quite sad that there was another series of events about these Inazuma figures that happened during the Cataclysm. It is interesting to see whether the four nations now existing have also been affected by the Cataclysm and how their stories began or ended. I just hope that we will be able to see more connections to this as well as the whereabouts of Asase Kanade and what happened with Akudumeki's rebellion in the future. As always, if you have some thoughts about the video and suggestions for future ideas, leave a comment and let us know. Thank you very much for watching, and if you think it deserves one, give this video a like. Once again, my name is Clementine, and as usual, until the next one, be safe and stay tuned.